10 GOP senators have released their, I think it's $618 billion plan. I don't know how many details you've haven't had a chance to see yet, but do you see that? It might be an obvious question, but do you see that as more of a realistic goal than the 1.9 trillion that the Biden administration is asking for, and why?
Yeah, the bipartisan plan that 10 senators on both sides of the aisle are trying to present to the Biden administration is, to me, a much more realistic, short-term or focus on where we need to go today. Let's remember that of the previous COVID stimulus and relief packages that have been put forward, we still have over $1 trillion in allocated spending that has not yet been spent. So there is still a lot of gas in the tank in terms of the current relief packages. And frankly, the $1.9 trillion proposal that the Biden administration came out with, to me, the most frustrating is there was $20 billion for vaccines, $50 billion for testing, and hundreds of billions of dollars to bail out blue states who were, not managing their finances appropriately before the pandemic. It includes things like a $15 minimum wage raise, a lot of other items that just have nothing to do with dealing with the task at hand. And to me, we should be front loading as much as we can production and distribution of the vaccine. And the fact that we're spending, 2/5 of what is being allocated for testing on the vaccine itself is really putting the cart last. I mean, that's where we need to be focusing on getting everything moving forward, because that's what's going to get us through to the end of this pandemic ultimately.
We don't know how serious the Biden administration is. They are bringing them to the White House, or they have already. I don't know if it's happened or not today yet, to at least talk about this. But there is already talk that the Democrats may do this through reconciliation, which I'll explain that to my viewers what that is later. How much would that hurt in your mind, the idea of bipartisanship, if Democrats decide to go that route?
I think it ultimately destroys it. I mean, the idea of budget reconciliation is that, with the Republicans in the minority in the House and, Democrats having a tie-breaking majority in the Senate, you wouldn't need a single Republican vote in order to pass this piece of legislation. So at that point, the entirety of these negotiations, the entirety of the outreach and the proposals of unity that President Biden spoke about in his inaugural address, that just goes out the window. I mean, it becomes our way or the highway, take or to leave it proposition, rather than trying to have good faith negotiations, of which there are many on the Republican side of the aisle, including myself, who are ready and willing to look forward to what the problems are and how we can address them in a fair manner. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm on the Problem Solvers Caucus. That's one of the reasons why I was one of 18 Republicans to sign on to a letter saying this is an area, especially with COVID relief, that we were happy to work with the Biden administration on. I think it's important that we have unity around these key issues, because the pandemic should not be partisan, and trying to put partisan wish list items into a large bundled package is not the way that this is going to be a solution going forward.
Okay, I'm loath to ask these kinds of questions because I know you guys aren't negotiating with me. You're not even one of the 10 senators that brought this to the White House, but you just said you don't want the White House to go it alone, our way or the highway. Then let's talk about negotiation for a second. These 10 senators are offering $618 billion. White House has proposed $1.9 trillion. If it is about negotiation, not one, our way or the highway, then is there a difference to be split in the middle here? And I'm just spitballing for the sake of easy math, $1 trillion or $1.2 trillion. Is there somewhere in the middle that you would be happy with? You wouldn't get everything you'd want, but you could at least say there's been bipartisanship and negotiation on this.
Well, I think, frankly, and this has been a bipartisan failing for far too long, and we saw it with the latest, omnibus spending, bundled with COVID relief at the end of the year, right? Send clean bills. If you need money for vaccines, for the love of God, put that forward. Put that into a clean bill. If $20 billion was requested, how much more quickly can we get to the point where 80% of the population is vaccinated if we raise that to $100 billion for vaccines, right? I mean, to me, we are prioritizing things in the absolute, worst way possible, with having some of the smallest money being allocated towards the thing that will actually get us through to the end of this pandemic. So that's, I think, one of the chief frustrations, is that instead of, putting this into separate tranches, right? Okay, in this bucket we have our testing and vaccinations. In this bucket we have our economic support. In this bucket we have state and municipal support. The more everything is lumped together, the harder it is to actually understand and figure out the rationale behind certain items. And the more it just becomes like I said, a take it or leave it proposition. And with the budget reconciliation being the mechanism proposed, it's not so much a take it or leave it as it is, we're just going to do it.
Okay, I could talk to you for an hour on this, but there are other issues that you'd want to talk about. Frankly, I want to get to too. Your committee assignments. I want to talk about them in general in a moment, but you are a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Is your committee, pardon?
Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs. I apologize. Foreign Affairs. Myanmar. We are watching right now a potentially, if not globally, a regionally changing event in Southeast Asia right now. Is this anything that your committee would or can address in any way whatsoever? I know the State Department has already sent out a pretty a stern letter to this. The United Nations has already said something about this. At the government level with you and your committee, is this anything you can or do look at?
I mean, it's obviously something we can talk about and message on. I will preface by saying the House Foreign Affairs Committee on which I sit, we have not yet had a meeting. So we were just constituted last week. But when it comes to supporting the democratic and peaceful transitions of power, what we're seeing in Myanmar is the exact opposite of that. It appears that the president has been she's been placed under house arrest. There'd always been a bit of an unstable tension between civilian control, which only arose in the last couple of years, and the, for lack of a better term, the military junta, the generals, who've traditionally wielded power in that state. That's always been, tending towards or had more authoritarian leadership structures. So this clearly seems like a setback for Myanmar's forward progress and growth. It's something that we need to better understand, because again, this has only happened in the past 12 or 16 hours, but it's certainly a troubling sign just for that overall spread of democracy and of peaceful transitions and towards the creeping authoritarianism that frankly has become far more aligned with China's impulses and incentives in the region than for the world more broadly.
Yeah, that was an important democracy in that part of the world right now. More broadly, your two committees, Homeland Security and Foreign Affairs, these seem to fit very nicely with your experience, particularly in the military. Were these requests that you put in at all for these committees, or were they just assigned and you had no say-so? And what are you looking forward to most about them?
Yeah, I have to give Republican leadership a lot of credit. I know we have a process called steering, and that helps allocate committee assignments with individuals' experience, with the needs of their district, and also with their interests legislatively. And so I'm proud to be on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and then also Science, Space, and Technology committees. Especially proud that on the Homeland Security Committee, I'll be ranking member of the subcommittee on oversight, management, and accountability. So this is an area where, especially given the investigations that will flow out of the January 6th attack, both, how do we make sure we have the proper security protocols in place, but what do we need to do to strengthen our democracy and our democratic process and election integrity processes as a result? It's something we'll be looking very closely at. I ran on ending foreign wars. That's something I'm still very passionate about. And our conflicts are currently being fought off of two different authorizations for the use of military force that were passed in 2001 and 2002. Now, those authorizations for the use of military force, the committee where those rest is in Foreign Affairs as part of their broader understanding on treaties and foreign relations. So that's something I'm looking forward to making some progress on, creating a sunset to or otherwise repealing, so that we can return back that authorization of war power to Congress from the executive that's held it for too long.
Okay, your first town hall is coming up. I got a heads up on what, when, how, and what are the details on it?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. We have a town hall on Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. It'll be held via Zoom. We're in DC for votes, and obviously with COVID restrictions, we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. So individuals can go to meijer.house.gov, and we'll have a sign up there. We'll also put it up on our social media channels. But this will be specifically around the impeachment vote. and any questions folks may have. Again, I've been talking with you frequently on it and with many others, but want to give an opportunity to not only walk through in a very detailed way the thought process and decision-making process and factual predicate leading up to the impeachment vote, but also where we might go from here.
Okay. Can I ask you one off-topic question? And you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. I think you were talking with Jake Tapper, and he had asked you about Marjorie Taylor Green, Representative Taylor Green, and you had said it is not your place to judge other House members or something to that effect. You're all responsible for your own actions.
Yeah, individuals are responsible for their own actions and their accountability to their districts.
It may well, but you have also said in the past that the Republican Party needs to get away from these conspiracy theories and start dealing in fact. So if it comes to a point where there is a vote to remove her from office, would you vote to remove Marjorie Taylor Green from office?
On expulsion, no. The only folks who've been removed this century or in modern history, those who've been expelled from the House of Representatives, that has been subsequent to a criminal investigation, charge, and conviction. I think it's a dangerous precedent to set, to be expelling members based on anything less than a criminal conviction. That having been said, I think there certainly need to be consequences. But more broadly, I mean, these are symptoms of a deeper underlying illness and issue with this country when it comes to just factual representation in debate in our political system. So I want to not confuse, what is a symptom with what is the cause, and focus our energy on fixing the cause.